Oh. Okay, anyhow. Went for a walk downtown, some pictures and so forth. Finally. So, because it does help me feel better, my second video tonight will be about what happens when we go fursuiting. But this, right now, is usually talking about it, oddly enough, makes me feel a lot better. And earlier today, I was really down in the dumps. To get to even going to downtown, taking a risk, I had to deal with the anxieties. I have before been aware and reluctant to go fursuiting because of my hearing difficulties. I do know that I need a handler, but I don't have the luxury of one. So, as I've said too many times, what had happened a while back was a whole chorus of furries online, and they were meaning well, of course, made the assumption that I wasn't aware of how hazardous it would be. That being hard of hearing, it creates a lot of problems, and I would have problems hearing what people are saying, and so forth like that, and hearing the little children scurrying about. So there could be a lot of accidents, both from my hearing impairment and just because it's what happens in fursuiting with the limited vision, that a handler's needed. So if you don't have a handler, you can't go fursuiting at all. You know, and unfortunately that's what it did for me, was it made me feel, it made my anxieties multiply. And so every time I think about going somewhere, I think, oh my God, there are going to be people there. Well, my hearing's going to be a problem. They're going to ask questions and I won't hear, and there'll be all sorts of problems and arguments and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, jeez. Total anxiety problems. And so I have a hard time getting out and fursuiting, but my therapists have been helping me try to overcome those fears. And some medication I'm on seems to be helping a little bit, so I've been trying and getting out and doing a few, but in the meantime, I have a fit, you know, just really upset that as much as I love fursuiting, as much as I need to, and it's a mental health need. It's one of the best things I can do to help me feel better. I've been trying many other things, and fursuiting has been the best thing for me. But it's also a thing that I really can't do much of. I mean, sure, there are plenty of other things I can't do. I can't go to a theater, a movie theater, and enjoy a movie because there's no captioning for the deaf and hard of hearing. So I just sit there and look at the pretty pictures. That's my typical day. It's always, you can't do this, you can't do that. Because there's those barriers, and also what goes on in my head of what I think could be said as excuse making. That I can't do this kind of job, I can't do that kind of job because I'm going to be required to hear the customers and not paperwork, to take payments from them, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So I get myself so tied up I really can't do very much, and trying to get past that. So I try very hard as an exercise in overcoming my fears to go fursuiting, which is why it's so important, and take the risks. And as I've already known before, as I read the instructions on how to fursuit and all that sort of thing, and other problems that happen. We have limited vision, hearing issues, and the hazards are, say, like what had happened to me is that a police officer was called at a park because of suspicious activity, because I was fursuiting in the park. And it's that old fear that I have. I've always been afraid that when I go walking in a park as a guy, that they're going to call the cops on me because I'm walking by the playground. But the problem is the main path goes right by the playground in every single goddamn park. There's no way to avoid the kids' playground unless I go tromping through mud or whatever. And in fursuit, this is not exactly meant to. Even going on in grass is kind of asking for it to get wet and mess up things. So I tend to, except the middle of summer, I tend to need to stay on the cement path. So I go to the park, I just cannot go fursuiting as much as I wish I could because parents are so paranoid. And that was one of the things I was warned about, but that's one of the things I already knew about before. It's a risk we take. They just check into us, check our ID, that's it, we're fine. That happens. There'll be somebody upset, there'll be, and so forth, but one of the hazards that the handler is for is, say, a little kid, because our vision's towards the front, would be scurrying around, coming up behind, and we're going to step on them by accident. Like they were little mice or something like that. You know, kids about that tall, you know, stepping on them, but you know, it happens, believe me. But it happens all the time. Oddly enough, all these things happen when I'm not in a fursuit as well. I'm in a grocery store, and these damn little kids are just racing all over the place, running all over the place. Parents don't care. And so I've tripped and stumbled on a few, stepped on one or two. That happens. And all sorts of accidents and stumbles and so forth. The handler will point out obstacles in the path and so forth like that. But one of the main things for the hearing impairment part is to repeat the questions to me, so I can hear that person has learned how to speak clearly enough for me to hear. We may also use an FM listening system or something to help with the hearing. We'll figure something out at that time, but I don't have enough money for the equipment. It's expensive stuff for the deaf and hard of hearing. So, you know, of course it's needed. I want to hear the questions. I want to hear the compliments and so forth. But, you know, they say because of your hearing, it's going to be more difficult, more likely that you're not going to hear little kids scurrying about, and not hear the warnings, not hear, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. And even out of fursuit, it's a nightmare. And the way my therapist was questioning it, like at a picnic I was at, a furry picnic, the usual rule is that I was taught was you go to the person running the event, let them know that I'm hearing impaired, I'm not going to hear verbal announcements, that they'll have to come to me and say, pull me aside and say, this is what had happened, you know, be sure it's repeated to me, especially in an emergency. Don't leave me out. But the therapist made it sound like I was being a wimp or a weakling or whatever, and asking them to do something for me that I could do myself. How the hell can I know the verbal announcement if I don't hear the announcement? I keep my eyes out and so forth, but there's always, every time, a circumstance where some verbal thing has gone on that I've not seen and I haven't heard enough of it to say somebody's talking. So, you know, I have to let the organizer know that I have a hearing difficulty. They should also know when this person's a disability, so when an emergency comes up, it's the responsibility of the organizer. When an emergency comes up, they're responsible to help that get, you know, whether we call 911, to ask somebody to help that person, whatever emergency situation or urgent situation. or crisis or significant difficulty, and it's their job to try, or in my opinion, to try to make sure everybody enjoys things as much as possible. And to say, oh, no, not the persons with disabilities, they'll have to figure out how to do it on their own. You know, that's just wrong. Unfortunately, that's the truth of it. I have to somehow be self-reliant. I always have been, but I keep trying to break through that barrier and ask for help from others in hearing issues. But it's very difficult for me to do in the first place. And so all I hear is discouragements, not encouragements. So I just wish everybody understood that, reminding me that because of my hearing impairment I have to have a handler, and making it sound like I should never go fursuiting because I don't have a handler. Until I have a handler that can work for me anytime that's needed, I should not go fursuiting. That it's that important. That's that's what's going on in my mind all the time now, is I should never go fursuiting. I should just stay home and rot and die. And fursuiters have a tremendous amount of fun, and it was what I was so envious of. And of the beauty of the fursuits in the first place, the quality of the designs, but I'm not wealthy, so I had to make up my own. And the fun they get to have, but unfortunately most of it I noticed is when doing something with somebody else. But as far as I know, usually the persons know each other. So when you have a pile of furs, for whatever reason, they know each other. I hardly know anybody, so I can never get into a fur pile or play ball or whatever like that, or at least I feel I can't or shouldn't. And yet that's one of the fun things to do. And I need to do it, but I'm just so afraid, and I'm trying to find local friends and to do things with, whether it's furry related, fursuit related, or just period. And it was so depressing when I realized that I'd have to have money, some amount. I'm on fixed income. I just have almost literally have no money to buy them lunch, give them money for gas, something for that person that's doing something with me. They call up and they say, Randy, which is usually my real name, want to go to the movies. Now normally I say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go to that movie because it's not captioned. But if I can go in fursuit, I don't care if I'm not hearing dialogue. That's making it a fun thing to do. So like for seeing The Lion King and so forth. And so what if I miss the dialogue? It's still part of it, and I kind of might know some of the Lion King dialogue anyway, well enough. It's not my all-time favorite movie. You'd think it would be, but meh. It's just not my thing. So I remain very afraid to do things. And I try to find somebody. It's been, unfortunately, a little too consistent that the only time I ever do make contact with somebody, they're under the age of 21, and my therapist says, don't get involved with anybody under 21, they're going to get in trouble. What am I going to do? And I can't, people are not replying to my emails and so forth, so I have no idea what's going on. All the guys, I am Weasel. The first message to him, he thought I was asking permission to post his photos that he made of me or whatever. I already had that before. I already asked him that before, I think. I was asking, does he live in the area? Does he know anybody that lives in the area? I would love to have somebody to do things with, kind of a friendship inquiry. They didn't answer that at all. all the messages, if they do reply, they don't answer, but mostly they just don't reply at all. I'm not finding out what the hell's going on. You know, and sure, everybody's busy and so forth, but there's so many that are like that because they don't want to take on another friend, especially anybody that's a drama queen and so forth. I'm out of luck. That's depressing as hell. I'm in a city of a population of 100,000, just for the city of Antioch alone. Then there's Pittsburgh, Brentwood, Oakley, Discovery Bay, and so forth. And then going over the hill, Concord, Walnut Creek. Believe me, there should be plenty of people who are furs who would want to be friends with me, let alone anybody at all. And nothing so far. I've tried, but I'm terrible at it. So I have to give up, just not expect to ever have friends again, ever. All it takes is somebody to contact these people in the area, follow up and find out why. Even go and find somebody that I haven't met before, haven't known about that's in the area, so we can do a friendship thing. Start talking. Start a dialogue is the way to put it. And the only time I ever find anything is they're Fremont, Santa Clara, San Jose, Santa Cruz, and it's too goddamn far away when I do find out what city they're living in. It's been rare to find anybody out in this area, Concord and East. So I'm out of luck. For those of you who are geographically limited, I'm talking about San Francisco Bay Area here in California, Northern California. Antioch's way east of San Francisco, way far away from Sacramento, and so forth like that. But unfortunately, it feels like as if I picked the place that's exactly as far away as you can get from all the furry events, from Stockton, Sacramento, Fremont, Sonoma County, San Francisco, and so forth. Everything's a minimum of 30 miles away. So there's nothing going on out here. We got a miniature golf place, golf carts. I mean, whatever they call those, bumper cars, go-karts, and bowling, 2 bowling alleys. The one just down the street here, and the one in Brentwood. Brentwood. Haven't been to yet. So I think that Gizmo's going to run out of stuff on this. So please help. Please.